Joanna. Thank you for meeting with me today. I appreciate it.
Great. I love being on people's podcasts. So thanks for the invitation.
No problem. Well, in a few minutes, just tell me about yourself and what you do.
All right. So I am a coach. I am a life and mindset coach for the small business owner. And I typically work with people that are really smart and have brought that expertise into the marketplace in a solo business or a small partner business. And so I work with attorneys, EOS implementers, certified financial advisors, others that are doing a craft, and a coach and bringing that into the world as a business. And so I love working with that type of business owner. And I also work with small business owners that many of my clients work with. And so I also work with those business owners as well, small business owners.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And how long have you been in business?
So I've been a coach for 8.5 years. And I started it from, like, as most coaches, I don't know if you know this is a secret. Most coaches start their coaching practice because they have had a big breakthrough in their own lives through either coaching or a big transformation. And for me, that was true. And I really wanted to share that with the world. And so that's when I became a coach 8.5 years ago.
And how did you start? What were you doing before? What brought you to coaching?
All right. So I was an empty nest mom when I opened my coaching practice. And I had spent years supporting an executive husband who was traveling on the road all the time. And I was helping raise our 2 kids and running a very busy, intense household in the best way ever. And I knew I wanted something for myself and had even seen, looking back, that I always was the leader of whatever, or I led Bible studies. I was, doing a lot of things where my type A-ness and my leadership need was always had a place to go. And it was thrilling to become a business owner and be able to really implement all that energy in starting a business.
Okay, wonderful. And why did you pick your industry?
I always, from the beginning, knew I would be coaching type A people. I first started in coaching people around that type A individual and how to help them lose weight. And then it really merged into more the mindset and the work needed to with work-life balance. So any leader, small business owners and executive leaders, I was working with them in work-life balance, really managing stress and that type of thing. I also worked with CEOs in weight loss. I've had several podcasts that have had those different titles, and I doubled down on CEOs with that really are, kind of a type of bird that the last person they take care of is themselves. So it can be reflected in gaining weight and not knowing how to keep weight off. And so I worked in that space for a while. But what was happening is I was mostly working in the dialing down the stress and working in those transitions that owners were making that were freaking them out, a lot of high growth or doing something very new in their business as a CEO. And I was ending up being their mindset coach way before I was helping them to lose weight. Those were the things that were causing the weight gain from stress over, emotional eating, stress eating, and just not having capacity or designing a business where you had time to take care of yourself.
That's right. It goes hand in hand.
It does.
And your productivity and your mental health. So
yeah. Our brain, we think our brain works 8 hours a day. That's a big ask. And so without rest or without interruption or without stimulating activities or without, and so we just have been sold that more hours means more productivity, and that really can shut down and hurt the insight and the wisdom of that owner on how to make decisions because they're always in reactive mode. And so it really is key that we learn how to operate in a way that is more higher productivity, but from taking really good care of the owner in the first place.
So what are some key strategies that you share that have given your clients a lot of growth?
Really helping them to understand the stress cycles they're in first. Most people come to me when they're really burned out and are experiencing very, very high levels of stress. So I work in what's called the thought model that I was trained in my coaching school. And so for the first weeks that I work with anyone, most of that is helping them to understand and become an observer of their thinking. because all of our thinking creates an emotional response, and that emotional response creates our action. So like an extreme example is if somebody is really fearful of the future and they're thinking a lot of thoughts, it's not going to go well. I can't run this business. This is going to be terrible. Those thoughts are creating a lot of stress in their body, emotional response of stress and fear. And I don't know about you. We all know when we feel those feelings, what do?
Procrastinate.
We pull way back. And procrastination is the first sign of a lot of thoughts around fear. And it's normal to have those thoughts. I want to make that really clear, but we don't have to act on them all. And it's fascinating how quickly my clients will turn around with some awareness within the first 2 weeks of working together, that they become, we're unique. We're not animals, but we are mammals. But we are able, because our brain is larger, we can watch our thinking. So what I literally am doing is helping my clients to watch their thinking and give them a choice on whether they want to think that way about the world or about their business or about a big decision.
Right.
So
That's
it's
very different.
really helping them kind of have that insight and agency back of like, oh, I don't have to think that the economy is going to go bad, therefore my business is going to tank. No, I can just say I can handle this.
It's very difficult to dissect people's automatic responses and how they think now, those thought patterns, and
Yeah.
to dismantle them and create
It's
new ones. It's a very difficult ask, and if you're able to do that as a coach, then it makes you very
uh,
valuable.
I absolutely love it. And I was pre-interviewing someone. I'm doing interviews on my podcast as well. And it's like I would tie things together. And she was like, I never saw it that way. But she goes, that was really true. And so that having that mind of a coach, having 8 years of coaching conversations does help me to help people get their power back by them becoming the watcher. It's not just my skill. It's helping I impart that skill to them so that they're self-coaching during the week before we have our weekly conversations. And then I help them tie it together. I help clients to see the effect of thinking a lot of stressful thoughts is an option, and to disrupt it and to not always be triggered and get really shut down with stress. When we start understanding how to manage that and calm that down, it's not perfect. We probably have a 50-50 experience of good emotions and bad emotions, if there is such a thing. But to get calmed down, that's when my client can make really great decisions on their behalf. That's when they see things in their business that they weren't able to see because they're not pushed back in stress. They are now on top of the situation.
So how do you as a coach feel when you help them accomplish a new mindset, right?
Oh, I love when they start realizing that they have more power in those situations. It's awesome. Like it is really gratifying. And what happens for most of us is we not only maybe think a negative or fearful thought, we also then, because we're very confident people as owners, anyone that's brave enough to open a business has a lot of confidence. And then sometimes when we're stressed out or feeling backed up by this kind of thought cycle, I'll call it, where you're stuck, we start judging how confident we are. Oh, now I'm not confident. I'm horrible. Like we get in a judgment cycle. We get in a conversation then, oh, I'm terrible. I'm lazy. I'm procrastinating. No, you just shut yourself down with a lot of fear thinking.
Yeah.
And so unlocking, that's the biggest joy, is watching somebody less naturally go to the judgment zone, that they disrupt that being really hard on themselves, because that's where we unlock the transformation.
Right. Well, what are some specific accomplishments you're proud of within your business?
Oh, I became a 6-figure owner 3 years ago, and that's a lane I love. A lot of cohort colleagues are like, I'm $1 million coach. And, I have more of a goal of running my business in a way that is very self-gratifying, but I don't want to run a big team. So it was brave for me to get off the scale kind of train and then develop a train, like in terms of the engine of my business, of serving people in a very, very personal way with more personal coaching, small group cohorts. I do small group coaching, but leaning into that lane and seeing how highly profitable I could be in a 6-figure way has been really gratifying. Is it my own goal? But most of the pride I have is seeing how people's work, when they've worked with me, how many people that affects. It affects the spouse, the partner, the team at the office. It affects their clients. It affects, like, I know once I work with an owner of any type and they are in that genius lane that they're best at, there's so many people that are affected positively by that. So I love that impact. So those are the two things.
That's really admirable. You want to keep it, a closer groups, so you have more control over what's
It's
going.
very powerful. Small group coaching, and I do that in a free way. I offer free roundtables and master classes. I have a free podcast. I love people getting an opportunity to understand what I'm about, so that then if they do want to coach, they have a very calm, they know me a little bit. And then we can have a very calm conversation about whether coaching is right for them. But I love that way of working.
That's good. You give value before asking
Yeah.
them to pay, right? And
I would
that's,
like them to be less stressed out ahead of time, but know that they want more. Like, yeah. And if that's all they needed and they come to something free of mine, or they listen to my podcast, I have people walk up to me all the time. I've listened to every one of them. I'm like, why aren't you a client? But many of them are like, that's what they need. And so they do get what they need. But then it's also a way, and I feel like this is really important for all of us in advisory, is they get a way to understand how you do your work in the world.
right.
And I love doing that.
That's wonderful. Well, what are some challenging obstacles that you encountered personally and professionally?
Oh, I was the overworked coach. I was the worst CEO to myself ever. My first 2 years, I still believe that, if I put in 50 to 60 hours, I'm going to have that business, right? And I was networking both like 7:30 in the morning and cocktail at night. And, I was having 12-hour work days, and I started looking at it and it was like, oh, I'm so burned out by the cocktail hour. There's no way they got a taste or understood me. And I didn't even have time to listen to what they were doing. I'm like, okay, what do you do? So tired. And so I think an obstacle for me was moving from that mindset that more hours does equal more work or more success, and really leaning in. And of course, that's something now I teach, because that's something I've really accomplished. But it is those obstacles of burning yourself out as a solo owner is so easy, because we've been sold on that concept that more is always going to bring more, but slower and less in a really inspired way is the way that I run my business.
Okay.
It works really well.
And what is your vision for your business over the next 5 to 10 years?
I told somebody this, and now I'll just say it out loud. I would love to be a household name in the group, in the advisory space. I would love more and more people to know what's really possible by really managing their mind and casting a really powerful vision for their businesses that doesn't burn them out, and that they, can have families and vacations and the type of work week that they want, that I become a well-known name, that I can be an example for others and my clients can be, so that I can reach those people that want to have that work and want to have that kind of life.
Okay. And what entrepreneurs or thought leaders did you look up to, or that inspired you throughout the years?
Oh, so many. I was trained by Brooke Castillo many years ago, 2014. It was when she started her podcast, and now she's more the scaling kind of coach. So it's not as much my business model. So I don't follow her as much, but she was the thought leader that taught me the thought model and helped me to become the mindset coach that I wanted to be. She gave me the tools to get started. I have incorporated a lot of other leaders. Brene Brown is really someone that I have such respect for, and someone that it's that authenticity piece of helping my clients do that as well, of being really honest with yourself and have difficult conversations when needed. And so I love Brene Brown is also someone I highly respect.
Yep. Yeah.
So many. Karen Gillan has been my business coach for 3 years, and I have had other coaches along the way that have helped me at such a high level. It has just been an honor to have people in my life that could lead me to what I knew I wanted, but they could see, like I see in my clients, they could see what I wasn't seeing.
Yeah. Having the right mentors to really make you uncomfortable and change, well, it really propels you forward. And over the years, what's one of your biggest business insights for growing a practice or a practice similar to yours?
I think there are seasons when you start, there's a few things you need to learn that you don't know. But I think the key thing is that your path, the way you want to run your business, even if it's not how everybody else is running it, that is the path. And I had to have permission almost from a coach to help me to see that in myself. That's what I do in my practice, is help. That the key is, if you listen to too much outside advice, you will not hit that unique edge that is yours to bring in the world. And so I help people to really lean into their genius, work in an edge where they're doing something maybe a little differently and uniquely than others are in the way they either build their business or the way that they offer their business. And I love helping them to discover that. If they don't know it, it's there. It's there. They wouldn't have decided to open a business. No one opens a business without a lot of vision about how they would love it to be. We can get sidetracked by listening to too many other voices. Yeah. That's why coaching is more powerful than strategy. Coaching can be so much more powerful than strategy, because that is helping that owner lean into their genius versus listening to all the advice of others. You know, certainly times we need outside help, but that is the key thing, I think, that people can miss.
It makes them unique, right?
Yeah. And we're all such amazing humans. We all have something very unique to offer the world. And I watch clients of mine that the way they network is so loving, and they get to know the people that they're about to do a discovery call with so well that, like, a week or two in working with them, they're sending them personal gifts that are from previous conversations. And that client just builds such a level of trust because of the way that person built that business and built that relationship. It's so fun to watch.
And what are some financial lessons for building a business that you've learned?
Okay, so I think most women are really, if they hire any coach at the beginning, would be mindset around money because I'll never forget when I decided to borrow money for a large investment that I was making. I had just done my website, I had just done these things, and now I wanted to invest in a coach group, and I knew it was the right space for me to be in. And I went to my financial advisors and I said, hey, I want to borrow from the line of credit. And like, oh, of course, you run a business, you need to borrow money. I was like, what? I had this mindset around borrowing money, and in such a negative way that I was hampering the flow of my business. So financially, it is great if you are breaking off from a full-time job. That is your fund. That is like, stay with the full-time job, work the extra hours in a way that you can to build that business as you have that going. And then, then decide that breaking point when you're ready to open that business. But also, do not be afraid of borrowing money. It can be such a beautiful fuel. Every time I did, I made that money back and more, because most of those investments were coaching.
Wonderful. Yeah. You're the first person on here to have said that. So that's
yeah. And I think that we get too safe around that, and we can hamper. I found this in myself. I'm in a personal transition. I became single this year, and looking at the way that I was spending my company's money, I was hampering and like in this transition. And I was like, oh no, I need to invest in that on my website. I need to be doing this. And I'm probably gonna be doing some bigger marketing dollars this year. And it was like, no, I'm going to spend my money in this way. And if I have to borrow from my line of credit, I know where I can do that as an owner.
Well, what's the most important realization you made throughout your entrepreneurial journey?
I was always meant to do this. I was here to do this. Like it was such an awkward thing to go from empty nesting until you realize I had a coach that said, wait a minute, you worked with, I don't know, he's a top stage speaker. You worked with Marcus Buckingham when he was an intern. I was like, yeah, he was my intern. She was like, why are you talking about this? So when you come from like this at-home life or supporting an executive, or, like you disregard all these beautiful things you did. And I was always supposed to do this. I ran the biggest fundraisers ever. I ran a group for a year. I made sure that group of kids went to China for, to go play. And it was like, I was running a little mini business right there. And so really remembering that, yeah, that's really important for all of us.
Yeah, it looks like throughout your entrepreneurial journey, you've had a lot of self-realization, self-actualization.
Yeah. And a lot of coaches do. It's in essence, a lot of coaches love coaching because they do love transformation. And coaches attract clients when they are in that growth, because then the people that are seeing what I have accomplished, not in the real, but maybe in my energy. And it's like, oh, I know I want that. That's how I've chosen coaches. When you get more into where you're bringing your expertise, then it's imbuing it with that transformation is being bold enough to keep bringing that expertise to the market and learning that way of bringing your business to life, the way you want to network, the way you want to build, have sales calls and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So all of us make a huge transformation when we start a business, because there's nothing that's going to bring up our mindset stuff, the negative stuff, more than doing brave moves. So it's kind of a required process for entrepreneurs.
What's the biggest inhibitor to people who are thinking of starting a new business but don't do it? I'm assuming it's fear, but
yeah. And they just don't have enough data that they can get themselves, like their mental data in the back, or their thinking is that they just don't have enough data that they can prove to themselves that they can do it. And it's like you can use a coach in that situation, certainly, but I would say that the hindrance of going from not running a business and going in is really deciding if you want to also. And I think that's a good reason. If you do not want to, if you really do see what's going to be required and you're not up for it and you'd rather work in a more supported corporate environment, there is nothing wrong with that. And being wise to that is really important. But I would say that, it can be that fear piece that you just aren't believing enough that it could work out.
Yeah. What legacy do you want to leave behind?
I think the brave, authentic way I've led my life is a beautiful example to my kids. I have grown children, but I also, legacy wise, it would be that there's more and more solo practices and small businesses that are taking vacations, are creating white space in their business, are learning to hire a team, are doing those things so that they can really have a life. Most business owners have been sold the thing that this is just what it is, and they've given up. And I think that that's really sad, that most business owners are very burnt out. And so a legacy would be that there's more and more owners that are able to take a step where they are taking really good care of themselves in the way that they design their business. Fridays off, a true vacation with no laptop, things like that. Everybody's got a different way that they want to do that.
And being a household name, you can change the mindsets of more individuals.
Of many. Let's hope.
So finally, what's a message you'd like to share with our audience?
I think the one key is our self-talk. I do the mindset awareness, but what unlocks transformation and change is how we talk to ourselves. So if any listener is having an obstacle, like something really is not going well, that they would be very, very careful about how they're speaking to themselves in that moment, and that they would be more curious and self-compassionate, as if they were their own best friend. And that will unlock what they need to do next.
That's really thoughtful advice. Well, Diana, thank you so much for joining.
This has been great.
Yeah, no, your perspective is really life-changing, I think, for a lot of people, especially when they chase that bravery and use it to change their minds. So thank you for joining me. And
thank you. It was an honor to be on your podcast. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, you have a great rest of your week, and
I will. Okay. Thank you.